Hello again and welcome back to the next video in your learning series of videos here for how to make sure that you are a successful alpha for your pup and for your household. So I have here 5 of the ways that you can show up as an alpha and set up your household for success. Now make sure that you are using the tools down below in the next chapter that really help dive into the family dynamic and who is responsible for what in your household. That will really help make sure that everything is consistent, everyone's on the same page. But for now, here are 5 ways, that you can show up as an alpha for your pet. Number 1. This is a fun one. People don't really realize this. Never put your head under your dog's head. Now, the regular dynamic of wolf to wolf or canine to canine, you do not put your head lower than another dog unless you are showing them that you are not superior to them. You are not going to be an alpha beta. You're submissive. And that's that. So you never want to put your head lower than your dog's head. The dynamic that you're initiating with that scenario is that I'm no longer in control. I, as the human, am now submissive to you, the canine. And you don't want that to happen if you want a successful relationship and you want to show up as alpha. So what do? Number 1, just make sure your head, so if this is your pup's head, is not lower than your dog's head. So if you're lifting them up and doing cute stuff, make sure that they're right on par or lower than your head. Also, what you can do, if your dog is already kind of trying to challenge you for the alpha role in your household, is literally stick your chin right on their head. I do this to my Pomeranian sometimes, who has actually tried to challenge me periodically. Doesn't do it very often, but every once in a while, and I'll just put my head right on top of hers. The other thing you can do is use your hand. Now your hand is going to be an extension of basically your head in this scenario. So your head, so here's a dog's head, your hand can go right over their eyes or on their head or on their snout. And that's basically going to do the same thing mentally for the dog. Says, I am superior to you. I know what's going on. I know what you're barking at, and that's not an issue or it's a non-threat. I know that whatever situation is occurring right now, that this is not something that you need to be stressed out about. I've got it under control. I am the alpha, and I see that everything's fine. And so that is going to be one massive tool that you can do. And again, if your dynamic is already starting to kind of be sort of contentious in the environment and you're challenging your dog is challenging you, make sure you put this into practice right away. Now, you don't need to make any sounds. You don't need to do any verbal commands. This is a very symbolic gesture that your dog is going to get right away. Now, if your dog is really, really confused and really trying to challenge you for the alpha role, you're going to need to do this multiple times, be consistent with it. Whenever they're barking at something at the door or if you have people coming over and they start to get a little bit nippy or kind of aggressive around the ankles or whatnot, or jumping up, again, take your hand, put it right over their eyes, over their snout, and then just look at them. You're the alpha. You don't need to say anything. What they're doing is not okay. And they know it, and they'll get it really fast. It'll be really clear. So that is the first thing you can do. Never put your head over them. Use your hand as an extension of your head, and then just put it right over their face. They'll get it. Number 2, don't play tug of war. Now, I tell this to my clients all the time. I practice this myself with my own dogs and with guests who will come and stay with me. I do not play tug of war. If you happen to love the game of tug of war, it's probably because your dog loves the game of tug of war. And the game your dog is playing is basically who's alpha. And what's happening in that game of tug of war, unless you initiate it, you end it, and you always win, then you are losing that game. So your dog, if they're bringing you their favorite toy and they are dropping at your feet and saying, let's play this game, I love this, that's them controlling you. Now, I don't mean this to be in a negative way. Your dog isn't trying to do this in a, spiteful, vindictive kind of way. It's just very simple. Your dog has decided when to play. That's a command. They have commanded you. And if you get up and start playing with them, they've just taken the alpha role. So if you want to play tug of war and you enjoy playing tug of war, and this is something that you actually really like, then you have to initiate the game, which means that the tug of war toy in question that they usually play with, usually there's a favorite, has to be up. Put it in a closet, put it in a cupboard. You initiate playtime. You pull it out. If your dog's barking because they know where it is, ignore them, come back to it a few minutes later. You take it out when you choose to take it out, and then you initiate play. The second thing you have to do is end play. So if your dog's getting bored after a little while and they're walking away, again, they've just decided. So you need to be the one that decides. Maybe set a timer, maybe, you know, count in your head, I'll do 30 tug of war throws or whatnot. But you have to end the game. And that way your dog is getting the very clear symbolism. You are initiating and you're ending the game. You're clearly the alpha. And last but not least, you can't lose. So if you're playing tug of war and they get a hold of it and they're running away with it, you've just lost the alpha role. They, again, are kind of giving you the commands. So you need to make sure that you are holding on to it nice and firm and playing the tug of war game, and then they release. You can also give them a command, release, drop it, leave it, whatever it is that you need to use, whatever chosen, you know, word that you like and you work with your dog with. You are actually letting them have a time where they release the toy, and then you would throw it, they can bring it back, you can play tug of war, whatever you need to do at that point. But you initiate, you end, and you always win. And that way your dog will not be challenging you for the alpha role in that position. The third one that I like to do is you decide mealtime. And this is really tricky because if you have a toy breed or if you have a grazer in general, a dog that doesn't have a specific mealtime, I have a couple dogs like that. And so it's kind of tricky. You know, if you are not going to get up and give them food at a specific time each day in the morning or the afternoon or the evening, then you need to make sure that you are controlling that food bowl. And the way you can do that, if you are going ahead and do it at a specific time, just be really consistent. Make sure if you feed them at 7 o'clock, you're really close to that 7 o'clock every single morning. If you feed them at 6 p.m., make sure that you're really close to the 6 p.m. mark. Have them do a command. You're controlling the feeding time, okay? Now, if you're not going to do a specific time and you're going to let them graze, you need to make sure you're still controlling the bowl. And the easiest thing to do is to just put your hand in the bowl. So if your dog is eating, let's say they randomly come up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday, they start eating a little bit of food, you can just wander over, stick your hand in, give them a little pet on the head, and walk away. It doesn't matter that you put kibble in there at that specific time or that particular moment. What's important is that they know your hand's in the bowl, you're alpha. Alpha can always touch the food, no matter what. Your dog should never be growling at you, giving you the evil eye, kind of sneering or showing their teeth. That should never happen. If that is happening, then they don't believe that you control the food bowl, and that's a problem. So what you can do if they start to do that, literally just lift the bowl, take it away. You don't have to, give commands. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to say anything at all. Just remove the bowl. And then they'll just kind of be surprised. And, you can have them go ahead and sit. You can have them, do a trick or whatnot. You can have them wait 5 minutes. And when you bring the food bowl back, you keep your hand on the food bowl. You give them the command, to sit or stay or whatever, or eat or whatever command you're using. And then your hand stays there. When they start eating, then you can say, okay, good. And then you can release your hand. But your hand stays on the bowl until they've shown you the, quote unquote, respect of the alpha. They're showing you that, okay, I understand alpha. You control the food and you can put your hand in the food whenever you want. Give a command for everything. So, this is mostly training you because realistically, after the puppy years, people get a little bit, lazy or just disinterested in constantly giving commands. And I am a proponent of nonverbal commands because in the canine world, most of what they recognize is nonverbal cues. So they're looking at ears, tails, back, fur, hunches, facial expressions, the way the mouth is moving. They're looking at a lot of symbolism instead of actually hearing dogs bark or howl or growl constantly. So a lot of the hand signals I use, I've trained them. I use one finger down for sit. I use a hand, flat like this for stay. And then for coming, sometimes my fingers are together and sometimes they're just straight like this. I just have them come. And I use this without any verbal cues. And I do this specifically, now my dogs have learned all of these cues, so they know. Sometimes if they're distracted, if they're barking at something or lurking, I'll snap and do that, and that's the audible cue for them to pay attention, and then they see the actual physical cue, and that way they know, stop, just sit down. And what's nice about this is once they know the nonverbal cues, you don't have to actually make a lot of noise. And the less noise you make, the better off you are, because alphas are not loud and noisy. Alphas are pretty quiet. They are really taking in a lot of the scenery, a lot of the extra cues that are coming from around in various areas, and they're making sure everything's safe. And by doing that, they're being pretty quiet. And so most of the other pack members will just look to alpha for those nonverbal cues. So what you can do is use nonverbal cues in the form of the commands that once you've taught them, obviously puppies are going to take a little longer to get these. And older dogs might get a little ornery because they may not feel good. So be patient, but nonverbal cues are going to be your best symbolic and alpha state where you can show that you're alpha and you're calm and you've got everything under control. But remember to use a command for anything you're going to do. So if you're going to give them a treat, you're going to have them sit, you're going to have them go outside, you're going to go for a walk, they're going to go in the car, they're going to get out of the car. All of these things need to have a command associated with it. Which leads us to number 5. The 5th thing you can do pretty much ties into number 4 is don't bark at your dog. Now this is confusing. I see people do this all the time. A dog's barking at the door, a dog's barking out the window, and they're like, stop it now, stop it, nothing's there, stop it, stop now, sit, stay, stop. And they're just making sounds. You know, your dog is just going to see that as an excited state, and that's going to reaffirm that there's something there to bark at. And so they just take that information as barking. I mean, you don't really make logical sense. You sound nonsensical at that point to them. And so they're just hearing you make sounds, so they're going to make sounds, and then it just kind of escalates from there. So what you want to do is be super calm. Right. Look out the window. Nothing's there. Okay, and walk away. And your dog will be like, oh, okay, well, I guess nothing's there. I guess that's not a threat. Now you can also train your dog with a trigger word. I've trained my dogs with not threat, not a threat. And so sometimes my Pomeranian, who loves, her job is to look out the window. I've given her that task. She is our eyes and ears for the safety from the front yard. And because she has that task, she likes to look out the window. Most of the time, she's pretty quiet. If she sees something that she thinks, oh, I should alert my alpha to this, she will bark for, maybe less than a minute. And if I don't come, that means it's a non-threat. Or if I come over and I'm like, non-threat, and I'll walk away, then she just, okay, cool. Well, I've done my job. And I'll go back to just watching. And so for the most part, she's pretty quiet looking out the window. And the biggest thing you could do is just not to bark at your dog. All of those words that they do understand, they do remember those words, but just repeating them just sounds like barking. So don't bark at your dog. Don't make repeated commands that don't make sense of the situation. Don't repeat them when they're not listening to you. Just literally look around like an alpha would, like an alpha wolf would, and then just walk away. Because an alpha wolf in a pack would just be like, well, this is silly. Don't make this noise. Don't alert me to things that I don't need to be alerted to. And your dog will learn very quickly, oh, alpha's calm, alpha's quiet, alpha didn't think that was an issue. Okay, now I know that that's not an issue. And the quieter you can be, the more confident you can be, then your dog will learn very quickly, my alpha is very calm and quiet, and I have confidence in my alpha. I trust my alpha. I know that my alpha is keeping me safe. And so I know that when my alpha doesn't need to be alerted, I know that that's not an issue. And so your dog will learn very quickly what is an issue and what's not an issue. And then make sure you're checking your own anxiety. If you are really stressed out when people come to the door, your dog will sense that and think this is an issue. This is an issue alpha needs to know. Someone's coming to the door. So when someone is coming to the door, let's say a package, you don't need to open the door right away. Just do it when you're calm. Take a deep breath, open the door when you're ready. Realistically, or if you don't like the doorbell, if the doorbell freaks out your dog and freaks you out and then it becomes this big dramatic thing, you can put some tape over the doorknob or over your doorbell that says don't ring the doorbell. That's totally fine. People totally recognize that. They get it. People do it for kids. They do it for dogs. It's not a problem. So just really work with your household and make sure that you are not, you're not setting your dog up. You want to set them up for success and not failure. So make sure that you are calm when you're looking at anything they're alerting you to. And the more calm you are, therefore, the more calm your dog will be. I hope this helped, and these 5 very easy to implement, yet so many people don't do them, steps will help literally make your dynamic in your home so much better and your relationship so much easier. You'll be talking dog in no time, you'll speak the language that your dog understands, and you'll have a happy home because of it. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks.